Hey, welcome to Agri Talk. I'm Mike Thompson here with Dwayne.
Hi. How is everybody today?
Just fine.
Doing it. It's a beautiful day. Got a little
Springtime.
spring weather.
Yeah, it's been sunny and now we're getting a little bit of rain.
Getting a little bit of rain.
Everything that farmers need to grow things, everything's greening up, the leaves are out.
Absolutely. Everything's greening up, and I think that's a key thing. And I think that's what we're going to talk about is not being green from a big fire out west. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So without further ado, we've got John Grimes with us again. We talked with him last time about a fire out west. So John, welcome. Again, we're just going to let you do a little bit of intro and about yourself, how long you've been with Ohio State, and what you're currently doing.
Okay.
And then we'll get into this fire story.
Well, I think since I was last year, past my work anniversary, I hit 31 years with Ohio State Extension.
Wow.
And enjoyed it very much. Started out as a county extension agent, and of course our titles change over the years.
All the time, yeah.
I don't know how many different titles I've had, but currently I serve as OSU Extension Beef Coordinator, and what that means is I basically do county agent or specialist work, but specialize in beef production, and we share the same office location, Piketon, at the research center over there, and have been there since the beginning of 2011. So.
Now you're statewide, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So you're statewide, where a lot of the counties, or they just take care of that local.
Well, we do different things to cover the state. Like, as you're aware, we do
Yeah.
a beef school in the winter that's a webinar format that we had actually 25 locations around the state.
Right.
And I do meetings in counties like this winter. I can't remember if it was before or after the show I was with last, but went to Ashtabula County. That's as far as northeast Ohio as you can go. So in general, the cows in Ohio are kind of draw a line from Cincinnati to Columbus over to Wheeling, West Virginia, and south and east
That's
of that.
typically where the
Yeah, but there's cattle scattered out the state, but that's where the most,
That's where
the
the
majority
majority,
are.
yeah.
So yeah, it's like you said, it's greening up. I think if you drive around the countryside, you'll see animals more out on pasture. Where in the winter, they're usually closer up to the barns. Farmers can feed them hay and things like that. But now that they've got a taste of green grass, they don't like the hay as well.
Oh, I'm sure this is nice, fresh stuff.
Exactly,
that,
exactly.
I'm sure they're after that a lot.
They kind of pick it as it's coming through the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Now, with that, I'm going to ask a question, just kind of a note to this as we talk about this Kansas thing. How many acres does a beef cattle need in Ohio?
to graze.
Yeah. I know it's different in different locations.
Obviously, a state like Ohio would be different than Texas or Oklahoma or Kansas. We get much more rainfall typically, and this is based off of research farm data. 40 to 45 inches of rain a year is what we would typically get in southern Ohio. There's locations out west that may get 10 inches of rain a year.
Right,
so
very little.
They would have a larger, we call it stocking rate. So in Ohio, I would say the average pasture situation to support a cow and a calf through the grazing season, so say from mid-April, where we're at now, to say at least 1st of November, maybe somewhere in November, you would need about 2.5 to 3 acres per cow.
Per cow.
And her baby. So I would say that's pretty typical for the Eastern Corn Belt in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. You go out west, it may be 20 or 30 acres.
Really, for one?
So they have to actually cover a larger area just to feed themselves. So, I mean, that presents some production problems. And honestly, in the Eastern Corn Belt, cows probably have it a little easier because they don't have to work as hard to consume the food they need. So, yeah, I think you're seeing some of that now. But as we transition out of the winter, the change since our last visit was they're more out on pasture now. Now, the thing we worry about is kind of think about your yard, how often you mow your yard at this time of year. What do you think? 5 days, maybe every 5 or 6 days?
Yeah,
roughly?
5.
Okay, how many days between mowing, say, in July or August?
Oh,
A lot more.
Week and a half to 2.
Yeah.
10 days.
Yeah.
Okay, roughly double. So the farmer has to balance out. If you have enough animals to eat your grass now, you're going to have too many animals in July and August.
In July and
because
August.
the grass isn't growing as fast. So that's part of the management of a farm is knowing that balance.
And do you fertilize the grass that's grazed, or does that happen by itself?
It's good.
Both.
Yeah, both,
And what I mean by that, if there's legumes like clover
Yeah.
or alfalfa, they can actually fix nitrogen into the soil. I won't get technical about that process, but they convert atmospheric elements and turn it into nitrogen. Well, but there are situations you need to supplement it. I would say more fertilization happens on hay fields
Yeah.
than pasture because the animals are out there grazing. They're kind of randomly
Fertilizing
themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas hay fields, where we're taking off
Yeah.
and not putting anything
Never
back,
putting it back.
You have to fertilize. So
Okay.
that would be different situations. But you mentioned we knew the fires had happened in
Yeah.
March when I was here. Had the opportunity to go visit some of it. Now those fires hit 4 states: Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado. The worst appeared to be Colorado seemed to have the least, but there were spots in each of those states were bad. But where I was in southwestern Kansas. Actually, you kind of know where the Oklahoma Panhandle is. If you start right there where the Panhandle starts, that's about the part of Kansas I was in, right along the border. Clark County, Kansas was kind of the biggest single county that got hit in all this. There's about 620,000 acres in that county. 3/4 of it burnt. So
3/4 of the county.
yeah,
Three-fourths.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that because of the
acreage,
winds?
all the winds, yeah. They had a good grass year. They had a lot of foliage on the surface, and you get dry foliage in the winter that's brown, and fire and 60 to 70 mile an hour winds, it's going to move. So I guess what I would ask the folks to visualize is just whatever's on the surface of your pasture, your yard, just take it all off. And that's
Yeah.
what it looked like.
It's just dirt.
And
It's just soil. That's it.
those
It
folks,
doesn't do any good. Like there's times when you burn a field,
to control weeds
Yeah.
or get,
or doesn't that put something back in the ground?
it does put some organic matter back, but you're still, the fire's consuming some of that.
Right.
Whereas say you disc it or you plow it, you're putting the material back in the soil.
Right.
You're kind of taking an eraser and wiping the chalkboard with
This
a fire.
yeah, I think this just basically made it go up in smoke
Right.
completely.
Because
I
what
mean,
I've-
there was nothing there.
What I've heard somewhere out in the West that fires are a natural part of the ecosystem.
Ecosystem.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. This
Not here
This
necessarily.
got out of
Not
control.
this. Yeah.
They do have what they call prescribed burning that you would work with, like the local soil conservation or
Right.
natural resources folks.
Yeah.
And there's a procedure. You have to notify people, let the local fire department know, that kind of thing. So it wasn't unusual to go out there out west and you'd see smoke clouds from time to time. But this was covering such a big area, and the wind fueled it, and it just got ahead of people. You just can't fight something moving that fast. And so that area, all those states experienced economic loss. I mean, there was no question about it. But so I got to see.
But when you burn 3/4 of a county,
And this is a sparsely populated. I mean, the county seat of this county was less than 1,000 people. So compare that to say Waverly, Chillicothe,
Yeah, that's
Gallipolis.
Right.
It's small.
Yeah.
I don't know what the total county population was, but when you lose thousands of animals and miles of fence, I mean, we think about industry, factories, infrastructure. I mean, that's the infrastructure for that business.
Right, yeah.
You know, grass, fence, animals.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
that's like a factory losing the building.
Yes.
You know, the four walls or whatever
and
around
some
it.
of the workers.
And some of the workers.
Right.
That's right, because you said some of the animals got.
Yeah. So it was. I thought I was ready to see some of that, and I was, but to hear the stories, it was pretty amazing. So I think I mentioned it the last time. You can go to the Ohio Cattlemen's Association website, ohiocattle.org, and there's a page where you can make donations to those folks. What the good side of this was to see the generosity of the ag community. I mean, the people from multiple states were sending in hay, fencing supplies, just whatever. There were FFA chapters that went in to help them tear out fence. You know, so.
Yeah, that was something we talked about last time. Is how many miles of fence had to be put up?
Well,
which is
it's
crazy.
and miles and miles of it, and cost estimates I was told for pretty standard 5 strands barbed wire fence, $10,000 a mile.
Wow.
Ain't that something? $10,000.
So you add all that up, it was significant economic loss, but those people are tough.
Oh, yeah.
They haven't lasted there that long.
They'll rebound.
They'll rebound.
Yep.
But we talk about our government and how they get involved in our lives, and they've done some token things to free up some dollars, but the dollars that they've freed up are really a drop in the bucket
It's
for
not
what those
enough.
folks. It's not enough.
It's not enough.
So I know the thing I'd say I'm proudest of
Mm-hmm.
is that the agriculture community stepped up to help the agriculture community. They did not
Everyone
wait.
else.
And I'm not making fun of any other disasters such as Katrina or the blizzard
Right.
that hit the East Coast a couple years ago.
Right.
These people did not get a lot of exposure on the national media. It did on social media, on Facebook.
Yeah, you're right. They did not. Yeah.
But the word got around and people helped. I mean, that was what was refreshing. So that was just kind of wanted to highlight that visit.
Yeah. And you said you seen trucks coming in with
Yeah, when we
hay
left,
and everything?
we left on Saturday, April 1st, and we're heading back to Wichita, and we saw a caravan of semis hauling in large bales of hay. So, and I saw some of those delivery points, and it was just there's hundreds and hundreds of bales that were brought in from all over the country. So, it's kind of refreshes your faith in humanity, I guess, a little
Right,
bit to see
right.
that happen. We hear
Yeah.
all the bad stuff on the news, but this was a pretty good story, actually.
It's a good thing to we should get that out more to
And that
for
was my
people.
point for bringing it up today.
Right.
So I appreciate you guys letting me do that. But no, it's a good time. I mean, this is kind of a transition time. Like I said, we've gone from the winter drudgery into a production mode, so to
Yeah.
speak. We've got grass. Farmers next month will start making hay for next winter. Calves are being born. I would say as we speak, calving season is winding down. Most of the 2017 babies are on the ground.
Yep.
And so farmers are now into breeding, or about to start breeding for next year's calves. So
Right.
there's always a cycle. You think about grain farmers, they have a cycle.
Right.
And once the harvest happens, they're starting to plan for next year. Well, the production cycle is a little more continuous in livestock. I mean, you're kind of, animals are being born, move into breeding season, another animals being born. So it's a cycle, and so it's a lot of work. The gestation's 283 days from conception to birth. So it's a long-term process with cattle. Conversely, like hogs, for example, they always taught us in school 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. That's the gestation of a hog. So that's 110, 115 days.
Yeah.
So it's less than half. So, and that's partly explains why beef's a little more expensive. It's a longer production cycle. When you go to the store, it is more expensive. It takes more to produce it.
Right.
So, but as we've talked before, most farmers take advantage of ground not suitable for corn and soybean production. You usually see cattle or beef or dairy cattle where you can't get that bigger equipment on more hillier
Right.
ground.
Banks. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I would contend it's a great use of our natural resources because we're using to produce protein where maybe we can produce
Nothing else to
grains
speak of,
or
yeah.
vegetables or whatever. Some of the work we do at Piketon with fruits and vegetables probably isn't as conducive on some of the hills
No, probably not. Not with
So-
the drainage, and
Yep.
it would be hard to
in the
keep
harvest
runoff
mode.
even.
And, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but the meat or protein business in this country is big. I mean, we have beef cows in this country. We have roughly 32 million beef cows across the country. Roughly 290,000 are in Ohio. So your states like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, basically, I call it the Bible Belt for cattle, is from Texas up through the Dakotas, up into Montana. Missouri is a big cow state. Actually, Kentucky's the biggest cow-calf state east of the Mississippi.
Really?
Just a little bit of trivia.
Well, that's interesting.
But
Wouldn't have thought that.
but
I wouldn't have thought Kentucky.
beef production's changing. I mean, there's no question. We're moving from kind of a commodity, unbranded mindset to specialized or brands of beef. We're seeing that, or niches of types of production. The traditional beef produced in this country is grain-fed. We produce them on pasture, get them up to weaning, and at some point after they're weaned off the cow, They eventually make their way to a feedlot where they receive grains, silage, byproducts like distillers' grains, things like that, to finish them. Usually, when I say finished, they reach harvest at 15 to 20 months. That would be typical age of beef when it's processed.
So the time that what's the time when you take them off of the grass and strictly grain fed? What is that time? Is that a couple of months? Three?
It depends on economics. Corn is relatively cheap now, so animals probably get to the feedlot a little quicker than say 5 years ago when corn was $7 or $8 a bushel.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing with beef cattle. They're ruminants. They can eat forage,
Right, a little longer,
whereas hogs
little shorter
and
time.
poultry cannot. They're monogastrics,
Yeah.
single stomach. So we have some flexibility. So to answer your question, not sound like a politician, avoiding your question, is so calves born, typically they're weaned off the cow 7 or 8 months of age. They go through the adjustment of leaving their mother to being self-sustaining, so to speak. They may go out on grass for a while and put on some weight with forage and then get to the feedlot at a later stage. But with cheaper grain prices, that age when they get to the feedlot probably gets a little younger. In other words,
Really?
economics dictate that,
Yeah.
so to speak. But our goal still is to get them harvested at a young age where the beef's still tender.
Right.
Age impacts tenderness. Muscle fibers get thicker as they get older. We can change some of that through aging
Yep.
in the cooler. Usually 14 days is enough to break down some of the connective tissue. So, but probably the change that you would see at the store is you see, when I say brands, like the one I'm proudest of would be certified Angus beef.
Right.
You'd see like Laura's lean beef, or you'd see certified Hereford beef, or former baseball player Nolan Ryan has a brand.
Oh yeah.
He has a brand where his claim to fame is on tenderness. He focuses on getting them harvested in age and the aging process to make sure it's as tender as it can be. So that's his niche. You'll see grass-fed,
Grass fed. Yeah.
all natural, not too much organic because of the strictness of that program. So when I say all natural, they don't get any antibiotics or hormones. So consumer has choices. You just don't go and buy a generic product.
Well, I know as we're doing this, and we're seeing a lot of that, how does this affect our export of beef?
Well, exports have always been important, and we had a big event in December of 2003 that really hurt that, and was where they found the one case of mad cow that this country has seen in forever, and it basically shut off exports momentarily until
Right.
figured out the cause and effect. I brought some information. I think today to a harvested animal, exports add close to $300 of overall value. The amount of sales we make overseas usually, so say today a beef steer brings at the market at a harvest weight price, probably give or take around $1,500 live when he's ready to go for processing. So roughly 20% of the value of the average steer today is close to that is from export sales, which is important. And generally, of course, our neighbors are important, but Southeast Asia has been because we are the #1 source in the world for grain-fed beef. We've talked, I think, before. South America, Brazil and Argentina, New Zealand, Australia would be probably our primary world competitors. They're more grass-fed beef. It has a different taste, a different flavor.
Right.
But if you want highly marbled grain-fed beef, U.S. is usually your go-to source. Our top 5 export markets are Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Canada, and Hong Kong. And there's speculation on where the Hong Kong beef goes. You may have read the news that President Trump and China's president made an agreement in early April about China, which has been closed to us since that December 2003 event, are going to open back up. Now there's a lot of work to be done on the actual wording of the trade agreement, but there's been a verbal agreement. That'll change things because China's middle class is
Right.
growing and they
Yeah.
have disposable income. So we'll see. We do import some beef. Generally, the beef that's imported into this country is what they call lean trimmings. We're not usually getting from South America or Australia steaks. It's usually for hamburger,
Hamburger. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
as they process.
More processed, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's hard to explain, but after you trim the steaks, there's what they call lean trimmings, and they usually grind that up for hamburger. Well, that's the kind of meat we usually get in to this country. So, trade's always a tricky issue. Some people would like to build a fence, or, pardon the pun, instead of
little
just a
fence
wall.
or
Instead of a wall.
Not a wall, a fence, huh?
But a trade fence,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yep.
But I think to have fair trade, we have to have it a two-way street.
Right.
And I think to this point, most of agriculture would value that arrangement. So it's interesting. Where it's going to go, who knows? The political climate, the way it is, and notice I didn't say North Korea. I said South Korea.
Right.
They've been an ally for a while. So we'll see where that goes. But I guess the thing is, you go to the meat case next time, kind of look around and see you do have some choices.
See what kind of choices there is now.
And
Yeah.
How do you pick out something?
well, there's grades. The government has quality grades, and the main three that you would see at the store would be prime, choice, and select. And prime would be, it's based on the marbling or the flecks of fat inside the steak, and that's usually an indicator of juiciness and flavor. Okay, so prime would be typically what you would see at a white tablecloth restaurant, like a Morton's or a Ruth Chris or something like that. Choice would be probably the better beef you would find at a grocery store. You would see some prime, but it would be very high.
Very expensive. Yeah.
Roughly today, 70 to 75% of our beef grades choice or higher, but of that 75%, 6 to 8% might be prime. So it's a small club, and the rest will be select. It would be the leaner, less marbled beef. And so if you go to the store, look for my taste, choice or higher.
Yeah.
Certified Angus beef, there's actually 3 degrees of choice, low, medium, and high. Certified Angus beef is the upper 2/3 of choice or prime. So different brands have different standards, like Laura's Lean Beef, which played the lean angle, would be more for the select.
Right.
So it just depends on your taste and what you want. So
Possibly
Bottom line
more
is you
healthy
have-
if it has less fat.
Yeah.
if you look,
yes and no, I guess.
it would be the fat that you used to see on the outside of the steak, that we've taken that off, either through genetics or trimming. So to me, the flecks of fat, there's different types of fats that are good and bad. So there's options for you out there is what
Right.
the main story.
Boy, this time flew by.
Really?
I mean, it's just
It's
quickly
always
gone.
interesting,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
Maybe
I
talk
looked
too
up
much.
and it was like,
Oh, I don't think so. I think that's great information. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just amazing what, and there were so many other questions we had. So
Next time.
next time.
okay. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and see you next time on Agri Talk.